Oh, Chapter 20. The Martian Leaves. Earth Person. Martian, I used to think of my parent and adapted child as being the bad parts of me. But if I keep on reprogramming myself the way I've been doing, pretty soon they'll be helping me rather than hindering me. How is that? Well, they won't be pulling against me anymore. I've always heard that once you have a goal in mind, you should be persistent and keep after it until you've achieved it. But I could never do that. Even if I knew what I wanted, my adapted child would soon get depressed and my parent would start telling me to do other things. So, so now I'm beginning to program my adapted child with good feelings, feelings of energy and power. And I'm programming my parent to keep reminding me to do what I want to do and to keep telling me that I can get it if I stick with it. And how does this help you? It keeps me focused on what I want. I used to be sort of unsynchronized. Usually, I didn't know what I wanted. And if my parent told me to be persistent, I just resist because it didn't make sense to me. And now? Oh, now I start out by checking what I want first. Then, with all this reprogramming I've been doing, it makes more sense to me when my parent tells me to be persistent. I don't need to resist anymore. And do you feel more powerful? Yes, it's like I don't have as many drains on my energy. Although, yes, I don't quite know how to say this, but every now and then I have a relapse. Oh, yeah. Like yesterday, I ate like a pig and I hurried around and felt powerless and confused, and there just didn't seem to be anything I could do about it. I mean, really, I tried examining how I was preventing myself from being clear and feeling powerful, and I just drew a blank. Did it clear up? Yes, today I woke up feeling 100% better. And what did you learn from this experience? Hmm, I guess I learned that every time I take a few steps forward, I seem to need to take a step backward. I just can't seem to keep going steadily forward at the same pace. And what would you like me to tell you at this point? Huh? You had a reason for bringing this subject up. You wanted me to say something. Well, I guess I wanted you to tell me about these relapses. Like, are they normal? What would you ask yourself right now if you were me? What? I said, what would you ask yourself right now if you were me? That's a hard one. I guess I'd ask myself what was so important about being normal. And how would you answer? Oh, I'd say I don't know. I mean, that's what my adapted child would say. Then my adult would say that being normal isn't necessarily very important, but having relapses certainly is. And if you were me, how would you respond to that? I'd ask what was so important about having relapses. And you'd answer? I'd answer that it was important because I shouldn't be doing it. Mm, And that sounds like my parent. Okay. Why not continue having a dialogue with yourself just as you've been doing? Would you be willing to do that? All right. I'll give it a try. Since I just heard myself talking from my parent, I think my natural child might speak up at this point and say I wasn't comfortable about having relapses. I didn't enjoy it. Instead of feeling energized, I felt hungry, depressed, and powerless. Then I'd ask myself how I arranged to feel this way. I'd answer, I don't know, it just seemed to happen, as if it was part of my growth process. Then I'd ask myself what it was I wanted to know about my growth process that caused me to bring the subject up. And I'd answer, nothing. I'd reply that I really didn't want to know anything. I was just making a statement and an observation about my own growth process. And then I'd ask myself what prompted me to make the statement if I wasn't interested in learning anything. And I answer that I was curious because what was happening was different from what I'd expected. I thought that once I'd built up some momentum in getting myself clear, I'd be able to keep it going. I didn't think that my adapted child would surface all over again, almost worse than before. I just didn't expect it. And now, what would you ask yourself? I'd ask myself if I just heard my parents speaking, talking about things that expected to happen, which is really crazy because I don't know anything about the growth process. And I'd answer, yes. My parent was speaking because underneath it all, I was really feeling scared because this was different from anything I ever experienced. Martian, all of a sudden I feel so clear. I don't have anything else to say. You don't really need me anymore, do you? God, oh, yes, I can't do this all by myself just because I did it once. That doesn't mean I can do it all the time. You'd better not leave me because I've got a million and one things to learn yet. There are lots of things I still haven't worked out. And if you were me, what would you ask yourself right now? I'd ask myself what I was feeling, and I'd answer that I was feeling panicked. Go on. Then I'd ask myself how it was serving me to feel panicked. And I'd answer that I was hoping you might see me panicking and it might convince you not to leave. And then I'd ask myself if this sort of adapted child behavior was still useful to me. And I'd answer no. And I'd realize that it probably wouldn't have much influence on you anyway. You're really clear now. Yeah. I'd also realize that it was more useful to me to continue this sort of internal dialogue, just like I'm doing. I just flashed on a thought that if you were to leave me all of a sudden, I'd really be a babe in the woods. I haven't finished working out all my problems with money yet, and I'm certainly not happy 100% of the time, but I keep saying to myself that whatever happens, I better learn this last skill about how to ask myself the kinds of questions you ask me as quickly as I can, so I'll have something to hang on to if you leave. And what's happened to your feeling of panic? It's disappeared. I feel okay now, and I've done it all by myself. Huh. But this thing about leaving me, you wouldn't do it, would you? What would you ask yourself right now if you were me? I'd ask myself if I was starting to scare myself again. And? And I'd say yes. And then I'd ask myself if I wanted to continue doing it. And I'd answer no. Oh, the Martian, if you do leave, it would be so unexpected. I mean, in the beginning, you talked about this being a journey, and frankly, there are a million things I haven't worked out yet, and some really hardcore adapted child feelings, some really scary ones I haven't worked through. I mean, God, what a place to leave someone. It's like throwing me overboard without a life raft. Once you can ask yourself the same questions I might ask if I were here, you don't need me anymore. All I represent is clarity, and you have that clarity now. But how will I know I'm asking myself the right questions? What would you ask yourself right now if you were me? Huh? God, you never give up, do you? I'd ask myself how I was scaring myself. And your answer? I'd answer I was scaring myself by thinking that I don't really know what you'd ask. I can do it all pretty well. I just fantasize about what you might ask and focus on what I feel and what I want. But to know for sure, to actually know what you really ask, well, I could never know. And what would you ask yourself right now? I'd ask myself if my fantasies had worked well enough so far. And I'd answer yes. And then I'd ask how I was continuing to scare myself. And I'd answer that I'm thinking my fantasies won't ever be good enough, that I'll never know for sure if I'm asking the right question. I'm doubting myself. Then I'd ask if I wanted to continue doubting myself. And the answer is no. So I'll stop. Well, how? I'm beginning to feel like I'm climbing a ladder, but I'm not bothered by the height. Going from one rung to the next simply isn't any problem, no matter how high I get. Good. Now that you're feeling so confident, I'd like to hear what you plan to do to become rich and happy. Oh, yeah. It seems so long ago when I first brought that up. Gee, I've really traveled a long way, haven't I? Yes. Actually, I'm already a whole lot happier than I used to be. I have a sense of my own power and I can really see what's going on around me. I've also eliminated a lot of old, useless, negative feelings. That's quite a bit right there when you think of it. That's true. But I can become even happier by continuing to program myself to feel good feelings. I can hold on to them when I feel them, and they'll become even more familiar to me. And of course, if I'm always willing to do what I want and doing it the way I want to, I'll automatically be inducing good feelings. Sounds okay to me. What about the richest part? Well, I do want to make lots of money, but at this stage, I'm not too sure of the details. I know that sometime very soon, I'm going to start fantasizing a great deal about what I might like to do that would also produce a good income for me. I'll also need to imagine how I'll feel when I succeed so that I'll be focusing on success as an end product. Excellent. A person could get a super feeling like this almost any time just by focusing on the fact that he has the power to do anything he wants. But I still have some questions for you, Martian, and I need you to answer them. Ask the questions and then answer them yourself, just as you've been doing. Oh, well, one thing I want to ask is how to tell the difference between a natural child want and an adapted child want. I'm afraid I'll stop myself from doing what my natural child wants by getting into my adapted child and wanting to rebel or resist or get revenge or feel lethargic and just sit around and do nothing. And if I don't know it's my adapted child, I'll just do it. I guess I'd answer by asking myself how I was continuing to scare myself. And I'd reply, I'm scaring myself by concocting questions I don't know the answers to and telling myself I have to know the answers, which, of course, I really don't. At this point, you'd probably tell me I'll always be able to do whatever I want. And if some adapted child want is strongest, I'll just continue doing it until it doesn't serve me any longer. And you'd probably say it doesn't make any difference if I know whether it's adapted or not. All right. Well, would you? Would I what? Say that. And there you go again, doubting yourself. But you know how to stop if you want to. You really don't need any more help from me. Oh, I guess you're right. And since I'll be leaving soon anyway, I think I'll say goodbye now. I won't actually leave until you're ready to say goodbye to me. But from now on, I'll only respond to you in one way. I'll ask you what you'd ask yourself if you were me. Goodbye, Earth Person. I've enjoyed helping you get clear. No, wait, holy Christ. What would you ask yourself if you were me? I'd ask myself how I was scaring myself. And the answer is that I'm starting to feel lonely, like I used to feel whenever someone left me alone when I was young. But there are so many things I want to tell you, Martian, like how I've learned that the most important part of clarity is seeing inside myself. As I improve that, I automatically see better outside myself. And there are so many things I still have to work out. There's so many things I have to learn. My parent isn't going to be any help at all in figuring out how to get rich. I just don't have any useful information on it, really. Although now my parent can see that I'm persistent. Funny, just a while back, I didn't know how much there was for me to learn. And if you were me, what would you ask yourself? I asked myself what I was getting out of talking like this. And the answer is that if I didn't tell you all this before saying goodbye, I'd feel unfinished. I've learned so much and I appreciate it so much. And if you were me, what would you ask yourself? I'd ask myself when I was going to stop saying how much I appreciated all this to someone who already knew. So I guess I'll stop doing it now. It's really amazing. I feel as if I've been sent out into the world again, just like when I first left home. But this time I've got the right information. And if you were me, what would you ask yourself? I'd ask myself what I wanted to do. And now I've caught on to what you're doing. Your voice is already beginning to sound like a recording to me. You're repeating the same phrase over and over again. You've said it so frequently. What would I ask myself if I were the Martian? It's in my parent now. And I guess I really don't need you anymore. Oh, but I did need a voice from outside to keep reminding me to stay in touch with myself. One that I could put into my parents so it would work hand in hand with my adult and natural child. A voice I never heard when I was young. Well, I guess he's gone. It seems strange, though. I don't feel at all abandoned. I feel he's a part of me. Hmm. I wonder, could it be he always was? Comments. The secret to becoming rich and happy is, of course, staying in touch with yourself. Once you've learned to do this, even though you may occasionally have relapses, you'll have a tremendous advantage over everyone else. Most people are so programmed to confuse themselves, to distract themselves, and to stay out of touch with themselves that they won't even know what you're doing. If you find you need some more help in mastering this process, you might want to consider professional assistance. There are many specialists in the use of transactional analysis throughout the country. For the names nearest you, write to the International Transactional Analysis Association, 1772 Vallejo Street, San Francisco, California, 94123. But remember, just as in the world at large, there are members of the ITAA who are not very clear, who don't know what they feel, and who don't operate their lives on the basis of what they want, at least not very often. Others are very clear and operate their lives much in accordance with the ideas presented in this book. They can help you immeasurably. You might want to talk to several members before drawing conclusions for yourself. If you've enhanced your perceptions from reading this book, you will easily distinguish the people who can help you from those who can't. Wow.